This just goes to show you that somebody having a giant inflatable Christmas decoration in the UK is the news of the day, compared to America where it is just a random Wednesday in December. Hello and welcome to the Christmas edition of Girl Gone London, where today we're talking about 9 Christmas culture shocks I encountered as an American moving to the UK. Because I have a long list. And it does involve Christmas pudding. Christmas culture shock number 1 are Christmas crackers. Americans would think of a Christmas cracker as a type of cracker that you eat at Christmas. Something like this, with butter or jam or whatever you want to put on it. But Christmas crackers in the UK are not meant to be consumed. They are this thing, and you crack them open on Christmas Day, and there's some sort of little trinket inside, which is not anything of importance, mostly some sort of like junk toy, but there are also typically either games or jokes that you can go around the table and share. And the thing that confused me the most about Christmas crackers is that I feel like every family and every gathering have different ways of doing them. Some people break open their own cracker, some people you hold on to the ones of people next to you and you all do it at the same time. Some people get crazy and you like cross your arms. I feel like everyone has their own cracker opening technique, and so you're just this American 19-year-old in this foreign land, have no idea what's about to happen. You're like, are we about to do fireworks on Christmas? Like, what is in this package? And then you find out it's like the world's tiniest ruler and a really bad joke. And that is the magic of a Christmas cracker. Next on my list, and I'm just gonna go ahead and break all of your hearts with this, is Christmas pudding. Which is this thing. This is not a real Christmas pudding. This is some sort of Christmas pudding jug that I have literally no idea why I have. I was looking through my Christmas decorations, like it is a weird combination of over-the-top American decorations, as well as some like British themed Christmas decorations. It's a very confusing pile. But this is what a Christmas pudding kind of looks like. And if you're not familiar, which most people in America aren't, Christmas pudding is like a really dense, like fruitcake, spongy, not super spongy, like sponge, but it's really dense, and it's eaten on Christmas Day, hence the name Christmas pudding. Americans do not have Christmas pudding on Christmas, and I didn't know what to expect when I was trying this for the first time. Now, Christmas pudding seems like a polarizing topic every time I mention it, so please feel free to weigh in on Christmas pudding below. Let me know if you enjoy it, who does the best one, because I bet it's someone related to you. Now, I have been very open about many things on this channel, but one of them specifically is that I strongly believe Christmas pudding is an acquired taste. The first time I had ever tried it was when I first moved to the UK, and it was my first Christmas here, and I went in not knowing what to expect, and I have to say, it was a lot. Now, it's very possible I do not have good taste. As you also know, I mostly just enjoy beige foods that don't taste of anything. So I'm not claiming to be Gordon Ramsay over here. I fully appreciate those of you who do like Christmas pudding. I just feel like it's not for me. I feel like when it comes to something like Marmite, which is also an acquired taste, I feel like I'm closer to that than to Christmas pudding on the spectrum of how close Kaylin is to enjoying classic British food items. The next thing on my list is something cultural. So Christmas Day in the UK is the same number of hours as in America, I believe, but when it comes to how long we spend doing Christmas at someone's house, it tends to be a little bit different, and there's a reason why. Because in the UK we have Boxing Day, which is a whole nother day off after Christmas on the 26th, typically people will often choose to spend Christmas in one location. Maybe if you have kids or you're at home and then you travel to like your parents' house or something, maybe you would spend it in 2, but you're certainly not typically doing the rounds like around all of your family and extended relatives. And this is because there is more time, i.e. the next day, to go to the other side of the family that you haven't seen or something like that. But in America, the day after Christmas is just the 26th of December. It means absolutely nothing. It is not a day off. You might have it off, but it's not any sort of national holiday or named event or guaranteed day off. And so you are trying to cram Christmas into one day. And if you have kids, this could mean stopping by multiple grandparents' house on one day. That definitely was the case for me many years growing up. I remember getting in the car and going from place to place. Now, as a kid, this was amazing. You just kept showing up to houses with new piles of presents, so I'm not actually knocking the tradition, but it's just something to note that typically I feel like in the UK, you spend a longer amount of time at someone's house on Christmas Day, whereas it's more common in the US to kind of drive around, especially if you have family maybe who aren't going to be doing Christmas in the same exact place, but are within driving distance. The next thing on my list is the panto. Now, I've done a video specifically about the history of the panto and how it became such a classic British tradition on my Patreon. You can find that here. But in terms of a culture shock, when you come to the UK as an American and someone says, would you like to go to the panto? This means nothing to you. I couldn't even have guessed what a panto might be. Turns out it's short for pantomime, which I'm still not even sure I would have been able to tell you what it was. But essentially, around the holiday season, how would I describe this? A panto is a show that does not take itself too seriously, and typically they are in a standard format in terms of they'll do Cinderella or Peter Pan or Aladdin or something like that, and it's mostly just a mess. There's audience participation, so you have to shout things back to the actors. The acting is purposefully overacted. You have a lot of gender swapping when it comes to roles. You have local jokes and humor. So if you go to see a panto in Birmingham, they will have different jokes than if you go to see a panto in London. And it's just this kind of like crazy, festive British holiday tradition. Typically, they're going to be something you can take the kids to, though you can find some that are more adult humor, but typically it's kind of like a family day out at the panto. And as I mentioned, we have nothing of the sort in the US that I can think of. If we do go to a show around the holidays, we would go to just like a performance of A Christmas Carol, or maybe something like The Grinch live in theater. We would go to a show around Christmas, but we don't have a concept of a panto. And while I have definitely been here long enough now to understand, appreciate, and enjoy a panto, the me that was sitting in that seat for the very first time seeing a panto was definitely confused. The next thing on my list is something that we're not familiar with in America that all of you British people are going to be like, this is such a classic, and that is the Snowman. Now, I'm doing a whole upcoming video about the Snowman, or incorporating the Snowman, but essentially the Snowman is an animated children's Christmas television film that follows a boy and a snowman, and it is honestly just a cultural icon in the UK, but we are not exposed to it in the US. We are really not familiar with it. It is something that is very culturally British, and so I had never seen it before coming to the UK. The next Christmas culture shock on my list has to do with Christmas cards. Now, both countries do send Christmas cards, but Christmas cards actually originated in the UK, and I feel like they take this very seriously. Americans do send Christmas cards, so don't get me wrong that we don't, but I've definitely noticed that Christmas cards seem like even more of a thing to do here in the UK. And the next thing on my list has to do with Christmas Eve. Typically in the US, Christmas Eve culturally is very much a family day. Then I moved to the UK and I found out that a lot of people are going to the pub on Christmas Eve, maybe with family, but possibly to meet up with friends who are also in town, especially if you're younger and people have moved away for uni and stuff like that and are back maybe visiting their parents. Christmas Eve doesn't tend to be, in my experience here in the UK, totally kept as like that family day as it does seem to be done in the US more often. This also could relate to religion and how religious Americans are, because in America, typically most of us are going to a Christmas Eve church service. And so again, it kind of sets the tone for the day. Whereas here in the UK, of course, some people do go, but plenty of people don't. And the next Christmas culture shock as an American moving to the UK had to do with suddenly realizing just how big American Christmas decorations are. People do decorate for Christmas, but it tends to be a little bit more understated. Compare that to some of the many yards that you'll see in America that look like this, and you come to the UK and you're like, wow, there is really no Christmas spirit here. That's not true. The Christmas spirit is just not necessarily displayed as an 8-foot inflatable snowman. In fact, I found an article all about a man who had received a giant inflatable Christmas decoration on accident. And this just goes to show you that somebody having a giant inflatable Christmas decoration in the UK is the news of the day, compared to America where it is just a random Wednesday in December. And the final Christmas culture shock on my list has to do with what is eaten on Christmas Day here in the UK, and that is traditionally turkey. Interesting to an American because turkey is our Thanksgiving meal, so most families won't have turkey again for Christmas. Traditionally speaking, if you had to pick one item, a Christmas ham is going to be the most popular, and this is especially what you'll see depicted in like American films and TV shows. That doesn't mean everyone in America does ham on Christmas Day. There is a little bit more variation, but traditionally in the UK, if you're going to ask a family what they're having on Christmas Day, it really is usually going to be turkey unless they're vegetarian. Now that brings me to the end of this list. Please comment below on your thoughts on Christmas pudding and which of these you were most surprised to hear that an American had never experienced before. As always, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.